Hi guys, welcome to my first video tutorial, bringing you this look today. I think it's a pretty wearable purple smoky eye with a nude lip. Great way to play with color. We'll be using a black base underneath the shadows to really help make them pop. If you're interested in a full list of products and brushes, I will have a link to my corresponding blog post in the description box. This is a long one. It's a very in-depth tutorial, so grab a cup of coffee, and I hope you enjoy. So if you want to see how to get this look, keep on watching. Alright, so we are starting today with clean and moisturized skin. No face primer. I haven't really found one that I really like. But we are going to start off with an eye primer. And today I'm using the Wet n Wild Fergie eye primer. I know not everybody likes this, but it works fine for me. It's very inexpensive, cruelty-free. It keeps the shadows in place. It doesn't necessarily make them more intense, but there are other bases I can use to do that. So I'm just spreading this all over the eyelid, up into the eyebrow. So not only the eyeshadows, but also the brow products will stay put. Speaking of, let's move on to brows. So I'm taking the spoolie end of my Anastasia Brow Wiz pencil just to brush the hairs up and then back, creating a neat environment for my brow products. And then taking my beloved NYX eyebrow gel in the color Blonde. I put a little bit of that on the back of my hand just because it's easy to use from there. I don't have a separate palette for it. I should maybe get one though, because it is kind of difficult to remove. And taking a thin angled brush, dipping it in there, going a little cross-eyed, and bringing that up to the brow, starting off with just the bottom edge of the front of my brow. And then I like to blend upward with the brush, just to create a little bit more depth, a little more texture, and evenly blend the product into the front of the brow. And then taking a little bit more of that product along the tail. Now the tail of my natural eyebrow is very sparse and the hairs are almost white. So I can really create whatever shape I'm feeling that day, but I usually go with the natural shape of my own brow, and then just use this gel to create kind of hair-like strokes along the end so it looks a little bit more natural. So that's just the eyebrow gel. I usually like to go back into the the Brow Wiz pencil and use the pencil end to fill in any areas that are still looking a little sparse, using very light, feathery strokes, as they say, again, just to create that same kind of texture of real hair so that the eyebrow looks natural. It doesn't look too severe or fake, for lack of a better word. And then using the spoolie end once more just to brush through, make sure everything's evenly blended, and there you have eyebrows done. Okay, so next I'm going to take this Hard Candy Birthday Suit palette. It's one of their 10 pan palettes. This is all matte neutral, so it's a handy palette to have. And I'm going to take that pale kind of yellow shade at the end, add a little bit of warmth to the look, and on a big fluffy brush, I'm using the Real Techniques Angled Shadow Brush from the NYX Picks collection, and just lightly dusting that over the whole eye area. So from the mobile lid all the way up to the brow bone. Not only creating a little bit more of an even playing field, but also this is going to make all the other shadows easier to blend. And then from that same Hard Candy palette, taking this warm terracotta shade, which I think is very pretty, on a Real Techniques shading brush, so something a little bit more dense. It's going to add a little bit more product to the eye, and running that through the crease. since we're going to be working with a lot of kind of cooler tone shades, I thought this shade would add some really nice contrast through the crease. And again, this is just a transition color, so adding just enough product so that it shows up, but it's not too intense. Unless you want it to be intense, which is totally cool. You do you. Okay, so now I'm going in with our eyeshadow base and failing miserably to bring that into focus, but it is a NYX Jumbo eye pencil in the shade Black Bean, and it's just a straight up black base. And bringing that very mistily along the lash line, upper lash line. You really don't have to be neat with this. This is just the base for the shadows, and we're going to use a brush to blend it out, and I'm going back in with that shading brush from Real Techniques just to kind of buff out the edge and to smooth it along the lash line. Now, you may have to play with this placement depending on the shape of your eyes. I have partially hooded eyelids, so I don't really have to bring this all the way up to the crease. It's not going to show up when my eyes are open, so you may have to play around with that to suit your own eye shape. And then just going back in with that pencil to any places that maybe got a little too blended out, because I do want this to be really intense, especially along the lash line, and very even. So again, just dotting that where I need to, and then using that brush to even it out. All right, now moving into this Wet n Wild palette called High Flying Colors. This is one of the summer limited edition palettes, taking this shimmery purple shade out of the palette. And I'm going to be putting that on with this $1 e.l.f. eyeshadow brush, which is amazing, especially since it's only $1. You can obviously use any shades you want, especially if you don't have that palette. It's very similar to a lot of other Wet n Wild purple shadows, to be quite honest. But I wanted to play with the palette. And we're just packing that on the lid over the Black Bean pencil. And you can hopefully see how much the pencil underneath intensifies that really pretty purple color. All right, now moving into Petal Pusher, which is another Wet n Wild palette, but this is a permanent one, so you can run down to CVS right now and grab it, which I highly recommend doing. It's fantastic. Whoops. We're gonna move into this kind of burgundy crease shade to help just add a little more depth to the look and define the crease just a little. Going back in with that same shading brush, because, you know, why not? Dipping into that shadow and then blending it into the crease. Now I'm going to keep this quite contained. I'm not going to blend this out very much, even though I do have the space to do that. I don't feel like it, but you can feel free to experiment with blowing this out a little bit more. And just dip back in and layer until you are pleased with the result. Again, from the Petal Pusher palette, now using this eyelid shade. It is such a pretty kind of duochrome, rosy, purple, golden. It's just a gorgeous shade. It's worth the whole palette. In my opinion, and I have to use it. So I'm gonna take that angled shadow brush, that fluffy brush, dip into it, and just blend that into kind of the outer border of our look, just to soften that edge a bit. All right, so stepping back for a moment, top of the lids are done using a Real Techniques blush brush just to wipe away any fallout from under the eyes. Going into my NYX Dark Circle Concealer and reminding myself to not try to focus things. This is a great concealer. It's kind of my everyday go-to concealer. It's got a little peachy hint to help counteract the blue tones under the eyes. I like to warm it up between my fingers. It's in a pot, so it's pretty thick consistency, and I find warming it up between the fingers and actually applying this with a finger is the best way to go about doing it. Apologies for the finger. Just pressing that product under the eye. I find this is the best way for me to apply this product, is just patting down and then gently blending outward with a finger. This will help to keep it from creasing or from losing any coverage. So hopefully you can see the difference between the sides. And then going in with my e.l.f. HD powder. Again, a great find from e.l.f. I think that big tub is $6. Using an e.l.f. small tapered brush. It's really beautiful and soft. Great for powdering under the eyes. And I find with this product, and well, with any concealer under my eyes, I need to powder it immediately and not wait until I powder the rest of my face. So just tapping that along underneath the eyes. Now to create the smoky part of this eye look, we're taking that black bean pencil and smudging it into the lower lash line. I used the NYX waterproof black pencil in the lower waterline and also to tightline the upper lash line earlier in the tutorial. And just smudging that into the lash line itself. And then taking that same shimmery shade we started off with on a Real Techniques accent brush, dipping that in, and we're going to use the brush and the shadow to help kind of blend that black bean pencil out along the lower lash line. So smudging along the lower lash line all the way towards the inner corner, but we're leaving a little space for a highlight later on. We're almost there, guys. So going back into Petal Pusher now with that same accent brush, dipping into the burgundy shade we used in the crease. We're going to tap into that and just blend it along the outer corner of the lower lash line. This is just going to help bring the look together, kind of connect the top and the bottom, make it a little bit more cohesive. And again, you can layer to get the intensity that you prefer. And then finally, moving back into that eyelid shade we used earlier, this time on the shading brush. And we're going to blend that into, again, the bottom border of that shadow. And you can bring this down as much as you want or keep it quite contained towards the top. And now quickly going for an inner corner highlight, using that really shiny brow bone shade from the Petal Pusher palette. Oh, yeah. Not sure what's going on with the focus though, I apologize for that, but using that same accent brush, I did bring a little bit of the black bean into the inner corner, again just to add a little oomph, and then just placing that along the tear duct. Just patting it over the pencil. You don't have to use the pencil, this is a very pigmented shade without it as well. Okay, so moving on to skin, I'm using two different products today. The Kat Von D Lock-It Foundation because the coverage is ridiculous, and the Pure Minerals 4-in-1 Tinted Moisturizer to kind of take the coverage down a little bit, make it a little bit more natural, but and also to warm up the colors. I have a little bit of fake tan on, although you probably can't tell because I'm still white as a ghost. In any case, shaking those up and then dispensing a little bit on the back of my hand and then blending it in just with a finger. And then to start, I just like to, you know, kind of put the war paint on, so to speak. Stripe it down my nose, along the cheeks, chin, forehead. You know the drill. And then whatever's left on the back of my hand, I just kind of slather on my neck. Super sexy, I know. But what are you gonna do? And then to blend all that in, whoops, sorry about that, I'm using the Real Techniques Expert Face Brush. Now, I really love the Real Techniques sponge, the kind of beauty blender on a budget. But I find that the Kat Von D foundation really does better with kind of the buffing motion that a brush offers. So that's why I am using a brush. And just waiting till that's all blended in, making ridiculous faces. And then just, I like to pat kind of around areas where I need a little bit more coverage, which is usually my nose gets pretty red, center of the face. And there's the foundation. Moving on to powder, going back into that e.l.f. HD powder. I always take a little too much out, but you know, It's light enough that it's hard to overdo. And using the blush brush that I used earlier to kind of wipe away any fallout under the eyes, and just pretty much bringing that powder everywhere. My skin's pretty oily, as you probably noticed throughout the video, so I really need to set all over my face. And that blush brush is really great. It's super soft and fluffy. Love it. Okay, so now moving on to bronzer, and I love the bronzer that's in this e.l.f. Blush Bronzer Duo. The shade is St. Lucia. Using again that Real Techniques blush brush because it's big and fluffy and it doesn't put too much product on. As you can see, quite pale, so a little goes a long way here. And just kind of dusting this on wherever the sun would hit, so along the top of the cheeks, the hairline, the forehead, and I'll also be bringing that along the chin and down my nose very lightly. Alright, blush time. Oh my god, can we talk about how beautiful this is? And the fact that you don't have to ruin your nail polish trying to get it open. This is one of the Milani powder blushes in the shade Coral Cove. Putting that on with an e.l.f. small tapered brush, nice and fluffy, because look at that pigmentation. Alright, so you need a very light hand with this. Tap off the excess. And then I like to dab it on the apples of the cheeks and a little bit back and up to lift the face. And then go back and blend. Because this is so pigmented, I find that is a really nice way to get an even sheer wash of color that looks natural and beautiful. I love Milani blushes. Alright, I wasn't planning on doing this, but hey, let's go all out and add a little contour. Using the NYX Powder Blush in Taupe, great cool tone contour for my fellow pale people. Putting that on with a Real Techniques contour brush. And I'm just going to contour under the cheeks today, I think. You could also bring this along the hairline, jawline. You could contour your nose if you feel like being adventurous. But I'm just going to bring this from the ear down underneath the cheekbone, probably about halfway. Just very subtle. I haven't really played too much with intense contouring. This is usually enough for me. I also just realized that I have been wearing mascara this entire time, and I forgot to mention it. So add some mascara. I'm using the Hard Candy Lashaholic, which is pretty good. I wish it was waterproof, but you know, what are you going to do? So there you can see just a little bit more definition to the face. Finally, lips. I'm going to be using this Milani Nude Cream Color Statement Lipstick. It's a really great neutral nude shade. I really enjoy the pairing of nude lip and smoky eye, even though I know it's a little bit cliche, but I like it. And this is a great nude shade, again, for my pale folks out there. Alright guys, so there you have it, the finished purple smoky eye using a black base. I'm really enjoying this NYX Black Bean Pencil, and I'm sure there will be more experimentations with different colors. I think this would look really awesome with that duochrome shade in the Comfort Zone palette, or with green eyeshadows in general, actually. So that'll probably be my next experiment. I so appreciate you taking the time to watch this. If you have any requests, any feedback, anything, let me know. And definitely feel free to check out my Instagram. And if you try this look out, then share it with me, because that would be really cool. If you like this video, like it, subscribe if you want. And until the next one, bye.